Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Before I start this video, please like and subscribe my channel for more awesome contents and do support. Let's start this video. We have to go now. Boss's usually happy voice is now gloomy. His toga had a rip on the front, result from battling the fallen angels. He laid his warm hands on Gabriel's shoulder. She was sobbing silently on the ground. Thunder rumbled from above the skies. Gabriel began to sob again. She blamed herself for Issei's taking. He sacrificed himself for her sake. Issei, she muttered silently between her sobbing. She ignored Masa, who laid his hand on her shoulders. Issei got brutally beaten in front of her just a while ago by that stupid, goddamned kokobi eel. He painfully impaled the light sword in Issei's gut, before changing it to a bat and beating him near death, all the while laughing his scary, dark laugh. She surveyed her surroundings. The silent abandoned town was now ruined. In front of her were the bloodstains of Issei. Her heart wrenched, she focused solely on the bloodstains. The town was silent now, but to Gabriel, the screaming of Issei still filled the air. She looked at her clothes, which were stained with Issei's blood. Her hair had a bit of blood also. She looked at her hands, which had dried up blood also, her eyes shaking in horror. "No, Issei," she muttered. Her eyes began to water once again. The first time Michael sent Julio and Issei on a mission, she was anxious. Very is an understatement. Issei was 14 by then. He was very excited. When the angel duo left, Gabriel got angry at Michael for sending Issei. What if he got killed there? She remembered asking Michael, who was smiling at her. She didn't know that Issei was right behind her. She remembered he hugged her. "I'll return unscathed, I promise. I'll take care of myself for you, Gabriel," he assured her cheerily, his warm smile never leaving his face. Gabriel rubbed her arms, remembering the warmth of Issei's hug. The rain started to fall. The skies were now completely covered by dark clouds, lightning appearing from time to time. Gabriel felt her tears trickle down her face, remembering what Issei did for her. He carried her across the train to the hot springs while raining, all the while keeping her dry. He was shivering in the coldness of rain while she slept in his arms, ignorant of his well-being. Her tears fell, along with the raindrops, asking herself why she was so weak and stupid. She was so confused of what she is supposed to feel. Was she supposed to feel sad because Issei got taken? Or angry at herself for being so ignorant in the battlefield? Furious that Kokobi and the fallen angels ruined their day, which was going so well, better than she expected it to be. Takeo and Masa looked at each other. Even though they knew Issei for only a night, they were horrified and saddened with what just happened. I mean, imagine an angel, all bloodied up and being beat up by sinister-looking fallen angels. Even a normal person who doesn't know that angel will be horrified with what just happening. Masa removed his hand from the lady. He sighed. He couldn't blame her for crying. The sight truly was heartbreaking. Feeling the raindrops drip down on them, "Gabriel, let's go," Masa said firmly. He understood that the angel is devastated. But crying here, out in the rain, wouldn't do anything or change anything. "No. I want to stay here," Gabriel screamed back, hugging herself. "Issei wouldn't want this now, would he?" he asked. Gabriel turned to the old man, furious. "How do you know what he would want? You only spent one night with him," she growled at the surprised man, before her anger vanished as she realized what she has done. She looked down. She just screamed at the old man, who rushed to the Legion of the Fallen Angels. Even though he didn't have to help them, he did. She felt guilt fill her heart up. "I'm sorry." She didn't dare look at the old man. "I understand you are upset. No, furious and desperate. Even though I don't know Issei as much as you do. I know he won't be happy with what you're currently doing," he said softly. The rain was hard now, They can barely see each other with the fog that formed. Gabriel can still see them both clearly with her enhanced vision. "Hey!" a girly voice screamed. The father and son can't hear the voice since the rain dulled their hearing. But Gabriel did. She saw Aya holding an umbrella with her right hand. 4 more umbrellas were hanging from her forearm. "Hey!" she screamed again. She was nearing them in quite the fast rate for her age. Gabriel approached the woman. Both the men were surprised when they saw Aya. They quickly ran after her. "Aya! What the hell are you doing here?" Masa asked, irritated. But he was irritated because she might catch a cold with what she has done. Aya handed them each an umbrella. "Well, I was here to hand the umbrellas to you, dear," she replied sweetly. She didn't hear the irritation on her husband's voice. "What happened?" she asked, concerned. She stared at the Gabriel who was staring at the wet streets. Her clothes had the slightest stains of blood. "My dear. Why are you covered in blood?" Gabriel looked at the two who were signaling her to not tell her. "Oh, this is not blood," she replied, before frowning at her own excuse. "Oh, you can't fool me. I know blood when I see one. I'm a doctor," she said, looking at the girl in concern. She looked around, looking for Issei. "Where is your good-looking husband, honey?" she asked Gabriel, who flinched. Aya looked at the spare umbrella she was holding. "He'll get sick if he let himself get wet in the rain again." Gabriel stared at the umbrella, the gravity of Issei's capture returning to her. She turned away from the three. "I'm sorry. I have to go," she said simply before unfolding her wings. Her wings seemed to do something, radiating a golden light. The rain seemed to avoid 15 meters around Gabriel. Aya gaped. "She's an angel, dear," she screamed as she retreated back to Masa, whose side. Gabriel waved at them before flying up. Line break. Michael sipped his coffee while looking through a balcony. For once, he didn't waste his time writing plans and countermeasures to almost every possibility or problems that may occur. Sighing deeply, he stared at the other floating islands connected to heaven. He was very nervous for his sister and Issei. Those two were extremely attractive, and who knows what might happen. His heart started to beat rapidly as he thought of Issei or Gabriel falling. "I can't let my sister fall. Nor can I let the boy treated and considered as my son fall either. Those stupid brothers of mine. I'll make them pay," he thought. Michael was panicking. Manurial and Raphael narrated to him their story and their brilliant plan. He went pale after that. He almost lost his self-control. He was almost willing to fall just to hurt those brothers of his badly, very badly. The hot springs? Oh my! Gabriel is extremely attractive, my sweet, adorable little sister. While Issei is ridiculously handsome, when he walks down the streets of heaven, a lot of female angels' wings flicker. If they stay together in a hot spring, the temptation just might be too much. I know I raised Issei to be very innocent, almost stupid when it comes to things like this, but Uriel.'ll kill that brother of mine. I know Issei loves Gabriel, crazy for her. And I'm not against the idea of Issei and Gabriel in a relationship. The only problem is, those two might fall. He thought, bitterly. Well, that can't be helped. Love is love, I guess. He calmed himself, sitting down his wooden round table. Surveying the plans he made, he started working on his very latest, a room for Issei and Gabriel. I will just do my best for the two of them. I'll make a room for them that won't let the both of them fall even if they do. That. He thought, uncomfortable of the idea of his sister and Issei doing what lovers do when the house is empty. Michael was just about to draw the design when the annoying ding of the elevator startled him. A smiling Uriel and a humming Raphael exited from the elevator. They were wearing their Seraph armor, just like him. Uriel noticed that Michael had a gloomy aura around him, and he wasn't wearing his usually calm smile. He knew what the reason was, and smiled. "Don't worry, brother. I'm sure the children would be good-looking," he teased, Raphael laughing as Michael growled. Ariel and Raphael took their seats on the round table. Michael stared at them before looking at what he was working on and continuing. Ariel was extremely pleased with himself. "If it goes according to my plan, Gabriel already fell for Issei by now. Not that she didn't, even before this," he thought, chuckling darkly. He leaned himself on his chair and laid both his legs on the table, closing his eyes and smiling peacefully. Proud of the boy he treated as his son. Meanwhile Raphael made himself some tea. "Good luck, Issei," he thought, humming a happy tune as he mixed the tea with a tablespoon. Although these three were disarrayed, they all looked at Issei as their son, happy for him as he managed to have a date with Issei. Michael stopped what he was doing, looking at his siblings, concern in his face. "Are you sure we shouldn't check on them?" he asked. Ariel opened his eyes, his smile didn't leave his face. "I'm sure about it," he said, waving his hand towards Michael. "Those two will be just fine." Raphael looked at them, smiling. "You should have a little bit more trust on the both of them, Michael," he said as he took a sugar cube and popped it in his mouth. "Well, I just have this feeling that they're in trouble," he said, reluctance in his voice. He was worried about the two. Ariel waved his hand again. "Always the worrier, weren't you, Michael? Father told you to stop thinking all those bad scenarios so much." "No," he was about to add something when the elevator dinged again. Out came Giulio and Griselda. Giulio looked like he hadn't slept for a week, his priest robe was covered in mud. Meanwhile Griselda had her hands on her hips, looking disappointed. Her lips were in a thin line, her eyes closed. "Really, Giulio? I told you to water the plants, not drown them," she complained, her voice laced with irritation. She was tapping her foot in annoyance before walking towards the round table, sitting on her seat and popping grapes to her mouth. Ariel laughed at Giulio, who looked like a hunching zombie, before closing his eyes again. Giulio sighed before nodding. "I'm sorry, Griselda-sama." He was very happy that Issei got a date with Gabriel, but he wanted to strangle him. Now that Issei was practically on vacation, he had to shoulder the job or tasks that Issei should have done instead. Also, he had to do the tasks that were for the both of them also. Now add Griselda's training and her early, strict schedule she made for him. He loved Issei, but right now, he just wanted to strangle his partner to death. He took his seat on the round table before bashing his face on the table, snoring. Michael hissed, his drawings were now ruined. He looked at Giulio as if saying, "Really?" But Giulio was already asleep. "Michael-sama, aren't Issei and I supposed to go to school today?" Michael turned his head towards Giulio. "Well, since Issei is dating Gabriel, I guess it can't be helped." Their date was an overnight. Griselda bit her lips. "So how was the date? Do you check on them already?" she asked in excitement. Her feet were tapping the ground, she just couldn't keep still. The boy she raised as her little brother just got a date. She was very happy, but also nervous. Like Michael, she kept thinking of horrible scenarios. Michael shrugged, to her frustration. Ariel opened one of his eyes. "We all agreed not to spy on them, remember?" "Oh, I know. I'm just somehow feeling uneasy," she said before standing up and walking to the balcony. She jumped off and flew to a nearby island, the island where they train. She decided she would just waste her time in training. When she trains, she becomes unaware of the time. She still was bothered by the queasy feeling she was having. Line break. Gabriel flew as fast as she can. She already made it past the storm clouds. Making a magic circle and teleporting to heaven must have been better, and she would have done so, if only she wasn't weakened multiple times by Takeo and Issei. If she has done that, she would have passed out in exhaustion and be asleep for at least 3 days. Not a wise move when time is something you don't have. She needs to save Issei quick, who know what that bastard Gabriel is doing to her sweet joker. Heaven is around here somewhere, she thought to herself. Since she can teleport to heaven, she needs to fly to heaven. Heaven is just above the troposphere. It would be invisible for humans, no doubt practically any creature, be it the devil, fallen angel, or even a god. Michael made it so that a special barrier will hide the heavens from all except angels. Gabriel flew higher and higher until she felt a sudden wave wash over her. She smiled triumphantly at this. There you are. Suddenly, a tear opened in front of her. It revealed the heavens and the floating islands that were anchored to it. She hastily flew directly to the main island. She flew straight to the 6th floor. She saw the normal sight of Michael and the others around the round table. She couldn't help but smile at this. She landed gracefully at the rail of the balcony, to the surprise of the angels. Michael stared in shock. His sister just landed. Her clothes were covered in dried blood. He immediately stood up in shock, walking towards her sister, his eyes wide. Giulio, Ariel and Raphael had same reactions. Ariel immediately ordered Giulio to go and find Griselda. Giulio nodded before running and jumping off the balcony hastily, stealing a concerned gaze towards Gabriel before gliding down the floating island where Griselda is training. "Sister?" Michael asked, concern etched on his face. He held his arms out wide, offering a hug. Gabriel smiled sadly at his brother, her eyes watering before she cried into his arms. Ariel and Raphael approached their hugging siblings, perplexed with what's happening. Ariel began thinking of what could have happened. He started looking around, noticing that Issei wasn't with his sister. "Anie-sama." Her voice was muffled on Michael's chest. Michael enveloped his sister in concern, rubbing her back. "Gabriel, shh. Calm down. What happened?" he asked. Raphael was uncomfortable with his usually happy sister crying. He already scanned her for major injuries and there were none. So the blood on her clothes were not hers. Raphael felt fear creep down his gut. He knew whose blood this was. This was Issei's. He concluded grimly in his head. He knew the blood of Issei since he took care of Issei and healed his injuries ever since Issei was still just a little boy. Ranging from minor injuries like the ones Issei gets from tripping to a major injury like a broken bone or a stab wound. "Gabriel?" he asked, his head lowered. He figured it out. Gabriel looked at him with teary eyes. "You two were attacked, weren't you?" he asked. Gabriel slowly nodded. "Issei and I were doing just fine, but there were mages, dark mages, and extremely skilled. I don't know why, but they can probably weaken even the Satans and us combined with ease." "How is that possible?" she asked, frustration in her voice. "What do you mean? What happened?" Ariel asked. "He wasn't really one who can easily catch on." Raphael casted a spell on Gabriel, making a medium-sized mist that will show them the memories of Gabriel. The angels were horrified with what happened. "You're saying Issei got taken by the fallen angels?" Michael yelled in panic. Gabriel nodded. Her eyes were red with crying so much, that mage. He turned the tide of the battle easily to their favor. Raphael watched closely. He walked near the mist and pinched it. The image zoomed to the magic circles the dark mage created. "These aren't your ordinary magic circle." He studied the magic circle closely. It was basically three circle, smallest to biggest. The smallest was in the very middle. In the middle of the smallest circle, the lines intersected. In the middle of each circles were runes. He was always the one most adept in magic out of the four of them. "It's no use. We don't know these runes. I know you're good at magic, but these runes are just too confusing," Ariel said, depressed. Raphael shook his head disapprovingly. "I don't know all but one. I know this rune," he said while pointing in a bizarre-looking rune. "Father used this rune in sealing Apocalypse." The angels gasped. "But that's impossible," Ariel exclaimed. Gabriel looked reluctant. "But if what you are saying is true, that explains why I can't counter his spells." Raphael nodded, a grim expression on his face. The silence was broken by Michael slamming his hand on the round table. He jumped out the balcony, opening his 12 magnificent wings. Gabriel ran after him. "Where are you going, Anya-sama?" Michael had a frightening expression on his face. "I am just going to pay Gregory a visit." Line break. "Well, today sure is boring," a man thought to himself. He was looking through a window wall in his office. His hands were on his pocket. A handsome man, he appears to be in his late 20s. He had an average build, black hair, but his bangs were golden. He also had a goatee. He was around 6'2". He had a bored expression on his face. He looked at the door that opened. "Oh, Gabriel. I see you have finally returned from your mission. You have no idea how bored I was without you. I can't play cards alone now, couldn't I?" The man who entered sighed. "Give me a break, Azazel. You know I never win against you," he said before collapsing down the elegant couch that was in front of the office table. Yep, this man was Azazel, the founder of Gregory and leader of the Fallen Angels. He sat down the opposite couch where Gabriel collapsed onto. "Oh, come on now. I'll help you beat me?" he asked, hopeful. "Now you're just making me feel even worse," said Gabriel's muffled voice. Gabriel appeared to be a middle-aged man, fairly good-looking. He had a muscular body, and black hair and beard. He was taller than Azazel for about an inch. Azazel laughed at this. "See? You cheered me up already. Go mess with Shemaza instead." "I'm too tired, can't you see?" Gabriel asked. Azazel gave a flat no. Sighing, Gabriel stood up. An explosion suddenly shook the whole Gregory. Azazel remained at his couch, although he suddenly covered his mouth to prevent himself from vomiting. He drank too much sake for one morning. Gabriel fell back down the couch. The shaking lasted for about 5 seconds. "Oi, Azazel. What the hell are you experimenting on right now?" Gabriel asked, annoyed. He just can't get used to how Azazel always makes something go wrong. Azazel looked at him dumbly. "Let's see, thought I postponed the artificial sacred gear that can create inferior black holes. I abandoned the research on the self-exploding whatever gear." Gabriel face-palmed. "You're hopeless." Suddenly, a female fallen angel opened the door. "Azazel, Gabriel. Michael has attacked Gregory. He is demanding you to hand Gabriel. Or give him the boy called Issei Hyoudou. He is pissed. I never saw Michael pissed before," she said, worried. Gabriel looked at Azazel accusingly. "What have you got yourself into this time?" Azazel held up his hands. "Hey!" he screamed. "Don't just accuse me of something. Besides, Gabriel hasn't come back since last month." Azazel sighed, following the pissed Gabriel. They were going to confront Michael. They exited the compound to see Michael angrily sending balls of light that exploded on impact. The fallen angels were casting all kinds of spells that can absorb or reflect the balls, but they were having a bad time in finding a spell that could possibly take the strong balls of light. "Well, he's the leader of the angels after all," Azazel thought, shrugging. He flew up, his 12 jet black wings unfolding. He waved at Michael. This seemed to calm Michael down. He stopped sending the balls of light and folded his arms. Michael. What the hell is your problem, huh? Azazel asked. My problem? You attacked my sister and her date? Michael shouted in fury. He was releasing a deadly golden aura, but Azazel released his own dark aura that kept Michael's deadly golden aura at bay. Wow. Lucky guy. He actually managed to get Gabriel to go on a date with him. Michael shouted in anger. That's not the point here. Hey, chill out, Angel. Why are you here? I was just about to get Gabriel to play with me. Azazel complained. Michael sighed at this. Please, Azazel. I beg you. Give me back Issei Hyoudou. Azazel's eyes widened. Issei Hyoudou? You mean the host of the Two Heavenly Dragon? Azazel asked himself. We didn't take him. I swear. Michael narrowed his eyes. Yeah, right. Why should I believe you? Don't believe me if you don't want to. Please, Azazel. Gabriel and some fallen angels captured Issei. They tried to capture my sister, but Issei let himself be taken instead. Heroic act. Well, one thing's for sure. That boy's gonna get tainted if not fallen. Sorry to disappoint, but I don't remember myself ordering that. Azazel turned his back. Follow me. Let's talk in my office. He stopped moving. Oh, Raphael. You can stop your invisibility spell now. I can sense you, Gabriel, and Uriel. He said, smiling. Right after that, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel appeared right behind Michael, full armor on. Gabriel, Shemaz, and Azazel were sitting on the couch opposite to where Gabriel and Michael were seated. Uriel and Raphael remained standing. I see. Azazel began, stroking his goatee. Raphael casted the spell that enables someone's memories to be shown publicly. Gabriel buried herself onto Michael's chest, crying. Uriel just looked out the glass wall of Azazel's office. Gabriel was missing for a month. He got angry at me. He told me that we should start a war against the other factions, but I rejected this, and so did the majority of the fallen angels. He and the other fallen angels left and never returned. Azazel said grimly. He remembered Gabriel even challenging him and threatening him. Well, he did what he had to do. He humiliated the ugly bastard in front of the fallen angels. Furious, he left the Gregory along with the small group of fallen angels that supported his idea. Azazel sipped on his coffee before laying it on top of the table between the two couches. But, he gave me this. Azazel said as he took out a piece of paper that was in his pocket. He said, whenever I chose to change my mind, call the number. Michael took the number gladly. Thank you. He said, his voice straining. He was never in terms with Azazel, even when he was an angel. You're welcome. But calling the number and threatening him won't do much, no? Azazel asked. Michael sighed as this is the best lead we have. Azazel stood up. He walked to a nearby wall. He pressed his palm near the wall and the secret door opened. He took out a mysterious-looking case. He returned to his seat. He laid the case on the table. Uriel and Raphael neared them, curious. This is my personal sacred gears that I made. Azazel said before opening the case. There were 3 objects in the case. They were put perfectly in a black styrofoam. The first one were black eyeglasses. Finely crafted, the glass was even glinting. The second one were black and gold headphones. It looked like something that professional gamers would probably have, and the ones you see in a computer tower that is very expensive compared to the standard headphones. The last one was a lance-like golden dagger with the violet gem on the very hilt of the dagger. Azazel picked up the first one, the black eyeglasses. Now, he said, raising the eyeglasses to eye level, this is flash transmit eyeglasses. This is my first artificial sacred gear. I killed hundreds of lightning monsters just to produce this glasses. He said, wiping the lenses with his sleeves. Whatever the wearer sees can be seen by others by looking through the case, he said, pointing at the case. Gabriel and Shemaza looked intently also. Looks like Azazel didn't told them about this also. Azazel putted on the glasses. He walked near the glass wall. Now, click the button on the very top of the case. Gabriel did as was told. Suddenly, the upper half of the case lit up and they saw the glass wall even though they were far from it. Azazel removed the glasses and smiled at the amazed expression on their faces. Amazing, isn't it? Next, he took the headphones and put them around his neck. This is the flash transmit headphones. Anything the wearer hears will be heard to the other end. The other end being the case. Azazel said nonchalantly. The wearer doesn't need to wear it on his ears. He can just put it around his neck or shoulders or whatever and, still, the thing works. Azazel grabbed the last one gently. And this is probably something I will need in infiltrating Gabriel's lair. Everyone stood and stared at him in shock and surprise. You will infiltrate Gabriel's lair? Raphael asked. Why? You don't want me to? Azazel asked. Raphael backtracked. No, I don't mean that. I was just wondering. Why? Everyone, even the two fallen angels, looked at him questioningly. Azazel turned his back onwards every one of them. He didn't answer the question. He took the phone instead and called the number. Hello, Gabriel? Azazel asked. Just as Azazel said, whatever he heard will also be heard through the case. Why hello, Azazel? Gabriel's sinister voice said, pleased. Have you changed your mind? Have you finally seen my point? Yes, I was wrong to doubt you, old friend. Azazel said with excellent, believable voice acting. Gabriel chuckled at this. I am glad. Now, join me. Well, how can I join you if I don't know where your lair is? Azazel said cheekily. There was a grave silence before Gabriel answered. Okay then, I will give you my location, but I must warn you, if this is a trick, it won't work. I have your heir, clearance arrow. Azazel's eyes widened. So you were the one who took it? You bastard. He said, in a voice that's about to laugh. But when you actually see his expression, he was far from amused. He worked hard on that artificial sacred gear. Gabriel laughed on the end of the line. Sorry, Azazel, but these gears of yours are just too useful to not take. I will be waiting, Azazel. And I have a surprise for you. You will be delighted, I promise you. The line ended. Azazel sighed, rubbing his forehead in annoyance. Curious, Shemazai asked Azazel, Azazel, just how many personal artificial sacred gears do you have? Azazel looked up in wonder. Let's see. Oh. The see-through glasses were destroyed by a devil. The naked reveal wand was stolen from me by a bastard wizard. And he kept muttering to himself. Shemazai's sweat dropped. You really are hopeless. He said, his smile twitching. Gabriel nodded in agreement. Azazel grinned at all of them before opening another cabinet on the wall. A bottle of sake. He walked out of the door, waving his hand which was holding the sake, not looking at them. Line break pain racked all over Sai's body. His wings were roughly and violently pinned on the wall. His hands were in shackles, right above his head. His legs were also shackled, and had weights on them. 8-ton rock to be specific. He felt like his body was going to be separated and split in half. Sai painfully opened his eyes. It was dark. His body was all sticky and his clothes were torn. Ever since the fallen angels got him, they kept him here in this slow and painful torture. He even remembered Gabriel say something before he left him in the darkness. This is the weakest and kindest torture method I will use against you. Actually, I wouldn't consider this a torture just yet. This is way too bearable to be torture. Bearable my ass. Issei thought sarcastically. Sighing, he hummed the happy tune Gabriel always hummed. Tears started to form in his eyes as he remembered and missed his gorgeous princess. Issei smiled at this. At least they got me instead of Gabriel. Their ambush failed, so whatever they do now won't matter. Foolish. He kept thinking to himself. It was 3 hours now since he was taken and hanged in this dark and damp room. He never removed the grin on his face. They got me instead of Gabriel. He reasoned. Somehow, that reason seemed to take the pain he was feeling. When he thinks of Gabriel getting taken instead of him, he feels a shiver go through his back. They didn't get my princess. I don't care what they do to me now. He said to no one in particular. Partner, you know they are going to make you pay for what you have done, right? Drake asked, panic and concern evident in his voice. Issei felt a warm feeling in his heart. So you do care for me? He said, happy. Of course I do, even Albion does. How dare you doubt our care for you? He said, he was crying. Issei laughed at this. Oi, Drake. Don't cry on me now. I'm still not dead. Drake cried even more, to Issei's amusement. So where is Albion? Issei asked. He fainted when he started to think of all the things they might do to you, Drake said while sniffing. Issei chuckled at this. Thank you, partners. Silence followed the short conversation. Issei slowly closed his eyes, tired. If this was the kindest torture to him, what of the others to come? Wait, this isn't even torture, as Gabriel told Issei that cruelly. Issei started to drift to sleep when the door opened and came walking in was a jolly Gabriel. Ha ha ha. Things are finally starting to get better. Later, a visitor will be coming, so be a good boy, okay Issei? He said, standing in front of Issei, arms crossed. For now, let's talk. I'll answer any question and listen to every statement of yours. He said. He took a chair and sat on it. Issei surged forward. Screw you. He said. Gabriel suddenly flipped a knife under his hand and slammed it roughly to Issei's stomach. Instantly, Issei gaped and his eyes widened. Gabriel was looking at him, his eyes glinting dangerously. Now, Issei. Be nice. Gabriel taunted. Issei gritted his teeth. Damn you. He said. Gabriel laughed at him and walked away from him. Now, tell me Issei. Why were you willing to sacrifice yourself for Gabriel's sake? He asked, walking to the side of the room to take a two-pronged fork. Fire appeared to the other side of the room. Gabriel started heating his two-pronged spear. Well, for starters, she's my master, superior, and king, Issei said in a sarcastically obvious voice. Gabriel laughed at this. Yes, of course. You angels are always loyal, until you experience pain. He finished with a dark grin on his face. He pointed the fork. Its metal blade was now glowing orange from the heat. Blazing hot iron is the best way to start a torture, Gabriel said darkly. Outside, the fallen angels smiled as Issei began screaming. They entered the room to watch, delighted. Gabriel laughed maniacally as he sliced and stabbed and from time to time just pressed the hot fork. Issei, in seeing the delighted fallen angels, gritted his teeth. He kept his shouts inside him. He wouldn't let the fallen angels enjoy themselves. Issei felt his skin sizzle as the fork was being pressed on his skin. Tears began to form on the corner of his eyes. No, I can't let them have the satisfaction of me screaming, he thought. To the surprise of the fallen angels, he smiled at them. Pain was evident, hot. He smiled at them triumphantly. Gabriel raised his brows. He laid down the fork on the fire and walked in front of Issei. Why are you smiling, boy? Have you finally lost your mind so quickly? Issei just chuckled at him. He looked at Gabriel scornfully. It doesn't matter now, he muttered. Gabriel, annoyed, grabbed Issei hair roughly and tugged at it ruefully, raising Issei's face to his. What did you say? He asked. Issei kept chuckling. It doesn't matter now. I have done my mission. I have protected Gabriel. Whatever you do to me won't matter. Even if I fall, I won't follow you. I'll even gladly kill myself if I fall, he said before looking at Gabriel straight to the eyes. You're a failure. You weren't able to get Gabriel. Do what you want to me. Rape me, torture me, kill me. It all won't matter. Gabriel is still safe and sound. Issei finished with the scornful laugh. The room went silent. To Issei's delight. That seemed to got them, he thought. But then Gabriel laughed loudly, and he even fell to the ground laughing. Issei looked at him, confused. Oh, Issei. Always the heroic angel, no? He said, standing up. He wiped away his tears from laughing. Before grinning at him darkly, making Issei nervous. Who told you we were aiming for Gabriel? You know who we were aiming for in the first place? He asked, to Issei's surprise. He picked up the now blazing hot fork. We were aiming for you, Issei. You. He said, before pinning Issei's shoulder with the blazing hot fork. Issei was now confused, despite the pain. Me? He asked. Why? Gabriel made the other fallen angels to exit, to their chagrin. Don't worry, my friends. You will get your time for him. The fallen angel smiled in approval, exiting the room. Gabriel smiled at Issei. Now, I'll tell you the reasons. First, I want the heavens to get weaker since losing you will be a large disadvantage for them. He said. Now, he took out a sharp, glinting sword. He pressed the very tip of the sword on top of Issei's chest. Blood started to trickle down from where the sword is being pressed on. Secondly, a douchebag is ordering me to do it. Issei perked up at this. Who? He asked before gasping as Gabriel suddenly stabbed him at his other shoulder and pulled out the fork roughly. Now, that is classified. That douchebag will probably kill me. Gabriel muttered, before smiling at Issei. The smile was a different one, like one would give when one is hungry and suddenly, food appears. Issei shivered as the smile was a weird one but somehow a familiar one. Thirdly, he said. Suddenly he walked near Issei and licked his cheek with his long tongue. Issei moved to the other side, surprised and horrified. What are you doing? He asked, afraid. For the first time since he came here, he was afraid. Gabriel was grinning lecherously at him. I have somehow developed an attraction for you. Issei's eyes widened. What? What do you mean? He asked, fear in his voice. Gabriel started to approach him, cupped his face. Oh, that expression on your face is just lovely. Issei moved his head away from Gabriel's hand. Go away. Gabriel laughed at him, not so brave now, no Issei. And fourth, breaking you would be breaking Gabriel. He said. Issei eyed him curiously. What do you mean? Gabriel laughed at him. I mean, Issei. Come on. Don't you notice how terrified she was when you're being taken? I felt a special, what's the right word? A special connection between the two of you. Now, it's my turn to ask you questions. He smiled. Issei glared at him, like how I'm going to tell you anything. He said defiantly. Gabriel was delighted at this. Now, nothing like that. I'm only going to ask you something personal. Personal? Yes, personal. So, what's with you two? Two? Stop playing dumb with me, Issei. With Gabriel, of course. The way you gazed at her, smiled at her. The way you talked to her. Gabriel said, grinning. His grin was like the one your teacher has when you get caught red-handed doing something that's not allowed. You love her, don't you? Despite the situation, Issei blushed. What? What are you talking about? Totally not. He said. Even an ordinary human can detect the lie. Also his wings flashed black. Now, Issei. We both know you're a terrible liar. What? That has nothing to do with you. Gabriel guffawed. Oh, believe me. That will be a very important material for torture. He was going to explain when his phone rang. He looked up. Issei didn't hear much except that Gabriel was angry and kept cursing. Ah, damn it. He exclaimed, Issei, I have to leave now. Let's just continue this later. Take your time. Issei said sarcastically. Gabriel grinned at him. Oh, don't worry. I have a surprise for you. He said. He snapped his fingers and the lights turned on. The sight horrified Issei. No, horrified is an understatement. Humans were also tied like him, multiple gashes and wounds on their bodies. It ranged from old men to young boys to old women to young girls. Issei was going to ask Gabriel what the hell was this when the door slammed before he could speak. The whole room was covered with dried blood. Even a skeleton of what Issei is assuming was a human was still hanged. Some bones were broken. Anger flowed to his chest. Damn them. Damn them all. Line break. I suggest playing Illusions by 2 Steps from Hell and put it in a loop. Gabriel quickly bowed to his knees. You're a disgusting freak. A voice said. A masculine, smooth, and at the same time intimidating voice. Gabriel smiled pathetically. Sorry, master. He entered a very dark room. A silhouette of a man was evident, sitting on a chair. He had red, glowing eyes. Let me remind you again what your mission is. Master, I know my shut it. Gabriel immediately whimpered. Your mission is to break Issei, at least before you pleasure yourself with him, break him first. Do not fail me or it will not end well for you. Yes, master. I do not care if you start a war against the 2 other factions or ally yourself with Azazel. Just break Issei and I will be content. You will never hear of me again. Understood. Gabriel moved his head again before exiting the room. I'll kill that bastard one day. He thought. Line break. Issei shook his shackles. He was trying to wake that old man that was 1 meter away from him. The man shook his head, groaning. Please, stop it. Just kill me already. He groaned, having a fearful expression on his sleeping face. Hey! Wake up! The old man groaned, opening his eyes painfully. Huh? What? He looked at Issei, his eyes widened. An angel? He asked himself. What have they done to an angel? He asked, outraged. Hello? Issei greeted, unsure. How did you get here and why are you tied up and shackled like me? He asked. Issei was sure this were ordinary humans. If this were exorcists, they would have already killed themselves. Julio once told him if an exorcist gets captured by an enemy creature, they kill themselves so they wouldn't get casted upon a spell that could hypnotize them that will make them tell secrets of the church. The old man lowered his head, looks like he was remembering some painful memories. We were camping, my family and I. I was with my daughter and her children. Her husband was setting the camp when these monsters captured us. My daughter's husband got killed defending us. My shotgun was no match against these monsters. He said, anger evident in his voice. He looked at the skeleton, his eyes watery. That's my daughter right there. She got raped right in front of my eyes. God. Even my grandchildren were played with. Have they no heart? He asked as his tears started to fall down his cheeks. Issei looked at the man with pity. Don't worry, I'll get you and your grandchildren out of here. The old man shook his head, his white hair tainted with blood. Thank you, son. But it's hopeless, even you, an angel, got tortured and captured by these heartless creatures. If an angel has lost against them, surely we're no match against them. Issei shook his head in disapproval. Don't worry about it, just trust me. I'll get you and your grandchildren and also the others out of here. Issei smiled warmly at the old man. Instantly, as the old man gazed at Issei's eyes, he felt warmth fill him. Thank you, angel. He said, tears in his eyes. What is wrong with those fallen angels? An old man and even children. Damn them all, Issei thought angrily. Gabriel entered the room. Issei scowled at him. Oh, great. You're back, he said sarcastically. Gabriel laughed. Missed me? Like how I'm ever gonna miss you and your ugly face. Gabriel just laughed Issei off. I heard a conversation, he said. He approached the shaking old man. Hey, don't hurt him, Issei screamed. Gabriel turned to him with a violent expression. Or what? You can't do much in your state, no? Issei growled at him. What do you want with humans, huh? An excellent question, Gabriel said. He turned away from the old man, to Issei's relief. You see, since the fallen angels are the fewest out of the three great factions, we were experimenting on a way to multiply our numbers. But we weren't getting far since, as Azazel said, some of the methods are inhumane. But I don't listen to him. I researched on this certain method and voila! It works. Ever wondered why when you and Gabriel were attacked, there were so many fallen angels? Well, this is the answer. Issei glared at him even more. You're a bastard. Why, thank you. Issei lowered his head, thinking of a way to free the other human prisoners. He had enhanced pain tolerance, and still, what Gabriel was doing is painful, very painful. Imagine if you had the normal, human pain tolerance. Gabriel? Free these humans. Gabriel had an amused expression on his face. Why would I do that? He said, almost laughing. What do I do? What do I do? Issei kept asking himself, what if? I'll take their burdens and tortures, every single one of them. Just free the humans, Issei said flatly. The old man was gaping, and so was Gabriel. Oh, dear Issei. Do you have any idea how many these humans are? If you were to take these humans' burdens and tortures, I doubt that you will stay sane. I don't care, just let me make a magic circle and transport them to heaven. Gabriel looked at Issei in suspicion. How can I be assured that you won't try to escape? Then put me in your stupid magical handcuffs. The old man protested. You don't have to do this. Issei smiled sadly at the old man. You're right. But this is my duty and I can't just let them torture every one of you. Gabriel laughed. Hilarious. Ever so heroic, no, Issei. Well then, I agree. Immediately, Issei held out his palm, making a large, golden magic circle. Gabriel called his fallen angels to untie the humans and lay them inside the magic circle. Gabriel noticed a shining in the corner of his eyes. He looked to his side to see something shining around Issei's neck. He walked towards Issei before roughly grabbing Issei by the collar. Issei's eyes widened. No. Gabriel pulled the necklace roughly before observing it. A silver cross. Wait, I know this thing. This is Gabriel's. Give it back. Issei screamed. The fallen angels froze as they never saw Issei this angry before. He was releasing a deadly red aura with silver threads of light flowing through the red aura. Gabriel looked at Issei while smiling. Interesting. He got this angry by doing just that. Gabriel's face morphed into that of a mischievous devil, and not a devil that looks like models. No. A terrifying devil. He dropped it at the ground and raised his foot to stomp on it. Issei, despite being handcuffed by a forbidden-level magical handcuff, broke it and jumped forward, attempting to get the cross in time. Crack! A sound went across the whole room. Gabriel removed his foot. He stepped on Issei's hands that were now broken. Issei was shaking. He grabbed the silver cross with difficulty. It was not damaged, only his hand was. Tears of relief flowed out of Issei's eyes. He was looking at the silver cross. Gabriel laughed at the crying Issei. Ha ha. He laughed, looking at the humans who were inside the magic circle. Look at your savior. He said. So that's how much he loves her, huh? A simple silver cross was able to get to him. Hilarious. Love is nothing but a weakness. The old man was horrified with what is happening. Curse you. You vile beast. Why thank you, sire. Curse you too. Gabriel said darkly. Issei held out his good hand, saluting at the old man before starting the transportation process. The old man was about to jump to Issei's aid when the magic circle glowed golden. The last thing the old man saw was Gabriel standing in front of the sobbing angel who was pressing the silver cross to his chest with the sinister look. Now let me show you where being heroic gets you. Line break. The 4 seraphs and the 2 fallen angels were waiting in Azazel's office. An awkward air enveloped the whole office. The 3 male seraphs were looking at their sister in sadness. Gabriel was the only one standing, looking through the glass wall. From time to time a tear falls out of her eyes. The image of a bloodied Issei smiling softly at her kept flashing in her mind. Azazel is already flying to the location. His 3 sacred gears were with him. Michael tried to be strong, to act strong for his sibling, especially Gabriel, but he doesn't know how long he can't keep his act. He wanted to scream in frustration and desperation. Issei was like the son he never had. Ariel and Raphael had similar feelings like Michael. A small golden magic circle appeared right where Michael's right ear was. The 2 fallen angels, Barakiel and Shemazai, were looking at Michael curiously, and so was Raphael and Ariel. Only Gabriel was the one not interested. Suddenly, Michael's eyes widened. Seraphs. We need to go to heaven. Ariel and Raphael nodded, quickly. Gabriel sighed before walking near her brothers. Thank you for letting us in your territory. Michael thanked the 2 fallen angels. He summoned a magic circle and quickly teleported to heaven. And there, a large group of humans were there. Clothes were torn, and they had wounds and injuries all over their bodies. They were all asleep, all except for an old man. Raphael immediately started healing the humans. Ariel started searching the memories of the healed ones. His eyes started to water. It's horrible, he muttered. He began transporting the healed ones to their homes. Michael and Gabriel approached the old man, who stared at them with amazement, fear, and disbelief. Please, don't hurt me. Michael smiled kindly, reminding the old man of the smile of Issei. We are not going to hurt you, Grandpa. Thank you. Please, it was terrible. The angel made the memories of these people about the torture inactive except for mine. The angel? Gabriel asked. The old man suddenly was speechless. He was staring at the beauty in front of him when he remembered the crying figure of Issei and the haunting line of Gabriel. Please, oh please help that poor angel, he said, bowing. Michael swiftly made the old man stand up. He summoned the old man some clothes, to his thankfulness, and made him sit down the round table. Ariel and Raphael were done with the other people and sat around the round table also, wanting to hear the man's story. Help him, please. He yelled at them. We will help him. Please calm down and tell us what your story is. The old man did what he was told. His eyes were watery as he remembered the strong-willed angel breakdown. Please, we were being tortured when the vile beasts took an angel and untied him. They didn't start torturing him just yet, they said, but they already hang weights on him, a ton raw to be specific. Then they started to interrogate him. The vilest of them, Gabriel believe was his name, harassed him. Raphael broke the cup of tea he was holding in anger. Ariel broke apart a piece of the round table he was holding. Michael almost lost his smile and Gabriel stared at the air emotionlessly. Luckily, he wasn't raped yet. I don't know what's happening to him now, he said, wiping his eyes. When Gabriel left, he woke me up. I explained him everything. He promised me that he will get my grandchildren, the others, and I out of that place. And he did. He sniffed. He asked why we were being tortured. Apparently, the fallen angels had a new method of making new fallen angels. I don't know how, but that is all that he said. And? Ariel asked. He was ready to explode. He was going to kill Gabriel if he sees that bastard for harassing his son. Then the angel proposed a deal with Gabriel. He said. He was choking on his words. He said he would take all the burden and torture of every human prisoner there if Gabriel frees us. He said it so strong-willed. Michael felt tears fall down his cheek. That's my boy, he thought to himself proudly and sadly at the same time. The last thing I saw was the man fainted. Looks like the emotional trauma finally got to him. Raphael laid the man gently down the couch near the round table and casted the spell that they would enable them to see his memories. He wished he hadn't. They saw this. Gabriel laughed. Hilarious. Ever so heroic, no, Issei? Well then, I agree. Immediately, Issei held out his palm, making a large, golden magic circle. Gabriel called his fallen angels to untie the humans and lay them inside the magic circle. Gabriel noticed a shining in the corner of his eyes. He looked to his side to see something shining around Issei's neck. He walked towards Issei before roughly grabbing Issei by the collar. Issei's eyes widened. No. Gabriel pulled the necklace roughly before observing it. A silver cross. Wait, I know this thing. This is Gabriel's. Give it back. Issei screamed. The fallen angels froze as they never saw Issei this angry before. He was releasing a deadly, red aura with silver threads of light flowing through the red aura. Gabriel looked at Issei while smiling. Interesting. He got this angry by doing just that. Gabriel's face morphed into that of a mischievous devil, and not a devil that looks like models, no. A terrifying devil that appears in your nightmares. He dropped it at the ground and raised his foot to stomp on it. Issei, despite being handcuffed by a forbidden-level magical handcuff, broke it and jumped forward, attempting to get the cross in time. Crack! A sound went across the whole room. Gabriel removed his foot. He stepped on Issei's hands that were now broken. Issei was shaking. He grabbed the silver cross with difficulty. It was not damaged, only his hand was. Tears of relief flowed out of Issei's eyes. He was looking at the silver cross. Gabriel laughed at the crying Issei. Ha ha. He laughed, looking at the humans who were inside the magic circle. Look at your savior, he said. So that's how much he loves her, huh? A simple silver cross was able to get to him. Hilarious. Love is nothing but a weakness. The old man was horrified with what is happening. Curse you, you vile beast. Why thank you, sire. Curse you too, Gabriel said darkly. Issei held out his good hand, saluting at the old man before starting the transportation process. The old man was about to jump to Issei's aid when the magic circle glowed golden. The last thing the old man saw was Gabriel standing in front of the brokenly sobbing angel who was pressing the silver cross to his chest with a terrifying sinister look. Now let me show you where being heroic gets you. Spell ends. Gabriel felt her heart wrench. Baka. You didn't have to do that. She screamed at no one in particular, collapsing down her knees and crying. Baka. She choked. Kokobeel's last words haunted her. She was touched of how Sai instantly sobbed in relief because the cross wasn't destroyed. But she was angry. You didn't have to do that, she said in her thoughts, hoping that it will reach Sai somehow, but she knows that will never happen. Ariel and Raphael were still staring at where the illusion was, having a hard time processing and accepting what happened. While Michael staggered back, falling down his chair, feeling his tears fall. For the four Seraphs, the last scene was the one most haunting. Imagine seeing Sai, the normally brave and strong-willed angel, cry, holding the silver cross necklace and hugging it to his chest, while the other fallen angels were standing around him, staring at him sinisterly, while Kokobeel said his most haunting line ever, "Now let me show you where being heroic gets you." Ariel muttered flatly, a tear falling down his cheek. Michael looked to the skies. "Azazel, please. Hurry." A black magic circle appeared on Michael's ear. The Seraphs looked at him intently. A hopeful smile appeared on his face. "Azazel has arrived," he said. They teleported to Azazel's office, hoping that Azazel gets Sai out quickly from that place. If he does the angels shivered at the idea. Line break. Azazel had mixed emotions. Confused, angered, surprised and weirded out. He was flying to the location Kokobeel gave them. Of course, he expected to be suddenly attacked or ambushed, but he wasn't. A few hours he was flying, an odd silence with him the whole time. He participated to help Michael and the angels in getting their Sai back. Why? He himself didn't know what came over him, and even though he spent the hours of flying and reflecting upon his action, he still didn't come with a conclusion. He was cut off his musings when he saw an island. Kua. The whole Kua was on the island. Azazel landed on the very coast, studying the place. No, this isn't Kua, he kept thinking to himself. The whole city looked like Kua, to the very specific. Only, it seemed like it was a bit dull. A miserable, gray sky covered the whole replica of Kua. And there were no people roaming the Kua mall and stores. It looked like an apocalypse happened. Newspapers were scattered all around. The stores with glass walls were broken. Azazel cautiously walked through the replica of Kua's stores. "What the hell?" he croaked. "Azazel. I see you have finally arrived." A voice suddenly made Azazel shriek and jump back. It was Kokobeel. Azazel glared, brushing his shoulders. "Geez, what the hell, Kokobeel, you're definitely trying to kill me," he said. Kokobeel just chuckled. "What is this?" Azazel asked, motioning to the whole place. "Why, this is a replica of Kua, of course." Azazel looked reluctant. "Then why is it so gray?" "Well, I designed this replica of Kua to be cool after an apocalypse has happened." "Beautiful, isn't it?" Kokobeel asked. Azazel shrugged. "Depends on how you describe beautiful." Kokobeel opened his wings and flew off, Azazel following. They stopped in the very middle of the island. "Now, this is the replica of Kua I made. We call it Fort Nex." In the very middle of the island was a huge mountain. On top of the mountain was a black fort. Kokobeel speeded up towards the mountain, Azazel following. Azazel noticed something extremely powerful. His senses were going to explode. An extremely powerful presence? Azazel asked himself. He doubted it would be Kokobeel, or even Sai. Something even more powerful. But who could be even stronger than the kid? "Don't worry, Azazel. It always happens the first time," Kokobeel said humorously. The fallen angels guarding the door opened it when Kokobeel landed. It looked like a castle now. Azazel entered, and wished he hadn't. There was a red carpet that led to another room. It was very long since the corridor was also long. And there were cells all along the carpet. Gabriel put his hand on his back and started walking cheerfully. Azazel looked around, seeing who was inside every cell. His eyes widened. He was contemplating whether to remove the glasses or not. In every cell, Issei was inside. They splitted his consciousness. Azazel concluded in shock. Gabriel looked back, smiling. "Surprise! That boy will be our newest addition," he said, pointing at a certain cell. "Issei Hyoudou. I know you know him since you know a lot of things." We splitted his consciousness, giving one consciousness to one cell. Each cell conducts a torture method, he said, before he smiled maniacally and laughed in front of Azazel. "He will feel every pain of every torture methods at the same time." Ha ha ha. What Azazel just saw disgusted and horrified him. Even him, a sadist, thinks this is just too far. Gabriel opened the door in front of him, and Issei had his hands tied above his head. A rope was tied around his mouth and wings also. And he was sweating a lot. His eyes were wide and he was looking everywhere. And despite the ropes, his painful screaming was heard. Azazel looked back to see Gabriel going out and into a cell. He followed quickly. "Gabriel, what are you planning to do?" Gabriel smiled. "Watch, Azazel. I will conduct this special torture method on him." This consciousness of Issei was spread like an eagle. Azazel walked to a corner to watch. Gabriel was given a bucket. Azazel looked at him in question. "This is a special lava I created. I mixed it with healing magic so Issei won't be harmed but he will still feel the heat of lava." "Haha." Gabriel said maniacally. Azazel gaped. "What is this madness?" Azazel thought as he painfully watched Gabriel pinch Issei's nose, forcing him to breathe through his mouth. Gabriel suddenly shoved the bucket of lava down Issei's throat. Azazel winced. Issei's gurgled screams can be heard and his eyes were looking everywhere painfully. He was shaking and Gabriel's horrifying laugh just added to the dark atmosphere. Azazel, though a sadist, found nothing arousing about this. He wanted to bash Gabriel's head right there but he reminded himself this wasn't the real Issei. He quickly exited the room but was met with the sight of another consciousness of Issei getting the torture method called water torture. Azazel felt his world spin. Another consciousness of Issei was being stabbed continuously while another was painfully getting his joints broken. No. Azazel muttered, holding his head and closing his eyes, trying to shut the screaming and the torture off. Azazel opened his eyes to that of determination. "I will get you out of here, kid," he thought, looking at the squirming real Issei. Gabriel appeared beside him. "Did you enjoy the torture, Azazel?" Azazel shoved Gabriel away. The shove was so strong he was sent flying straight out of the fort. Azazel quickly cut the magical bind Issei had won him and caught the falling Issei. The fallen angels encircled Azazel. But Azazel ignored them and ran for the exit. Every time the other fallen angels sent light spears toward them, he sent a spear of his own to counter. He was finally out of the fort when an extremely powerful lightning struck him. The lightning was like no other he has ever received. It shook his whole body, he can't move even his wings. Damn it. A bizarre-looking magic circle appeared in front of him. He was brought down to his knees. He was bent backwards, his knees still firm on the ground. His glasses were now sent away from him, looking at the two of them. Azazel's position was similar to the yoga position called kneeling backbend. Only that he was being forced by some unknown force to do this. The magic circle was now on top of Azazel's face. Then it released a continuous surge of magical beam, a very strong, magical beam. The whole place became dark and only the magical beam became the source of light. When the magic circle faded, Azazel was there, looking exhausted. He must have used his energy to minimize the damage that he will receive. High headphones were nowhere to be seen. Gabriel walked towards the exhausted Azazel, spitted on his face. Huh, I knew it. You were here to rescue the child. No, Azazel tried to move his body but Gabriel stomped at his chest roughly. Haha, well, surprise. I allied myself to someone much stronger than even the Seraphs and Satans and you combined. Haha. Azazel spitted at Gabriel's face, using the last of his energy to grab his bottle of sake. Gabriel tilted his head. You really are worthless. Azazel kicked him in the balls. Azazel quickly sent a punch to Gabriel's nose. The fallen angels regained their bearings and attacked. Azazel picked the sleeping Issei up before flying off and casting a spell that created a very thick fog. The fog was very thick now. Maybe I should have picked a different spell. Azazel contemplated. It was also a disadvantage for them since it was a decrease in vision. He painfully landed to the Gua residences. He felt Issei wake up. Huh? Don't worry, kid. He panted. Your family is coming. Backup is coming. He said, trying to comfort Issei, but he sounded like he was trying to comfort himself. He kicked open a house and quickly climbed the stairs. He entered a room, a standard-looking room, before he collapsed down the ground. Issei quickly helped him, and leaned him on the bed. He sat opposite to him. Issei was looking at him with caution. Azazel shook his head. Kid, you don't have to doubt me. I risked my life and there to save you and still, you're wary. Issei sighed as this, you have no idea how painful that was. He said, wincing. Azazel opened his sake. He took out 2 wooden bowls and gave one to Issei. So you're Azazel. Sama. Azazel laughed at this. Yeah, and your Issei Hyoudou too. After that, the room went silent. The only thing that can be heard was Azazel happily humming while drinking his sake. Issei cleared his throat. Not that I'm complaining, but why are you helping us? Now Azazel froze at this. His humming stopped. He himself didn't know why. Why was he helping the angels? Why did he risk himself just to save an angel? He looked at the gray sky. I don't know, Issei. I'm a crazy man. A worthless, crazy man. I guess, I wanted to do something that matters. Issei nodded at this. Azazel began. Ever since God died, I realized what I was doing was bad, but I can't change the past. He said, his voice was full of pain. Don't get me wrong here, I do not regret what I did. But I regret it at the same time. Azazel looked confused. He laughed as Issei chuckled. This is good. Yes, laugh. Azazel thought, it will be no good rescuing a traumatized, unstable angel. Azazel-sama, thank you for saving me. Issei said. Azazel scratched the back of his head. Nah, it's nothing. I guess I missed those seraphs. Ariel was my best friend, you know. Issei laughed at this. Well, he acts like he's a fallen angel. Both were laughing now. But seriously, why? I guess, what Gabriel was doing was wrong. I don't like that. And also, I kinda miss my best friend, Ariel, and also my enemy, Michael. He said. Issei nodded at this. Issei drank his sake. Wow, this actually tastes good. Hey, of course it does. You're a bit too innocent, even for an angel. I have been watching you, host of the 2 heavenly dragons. Don't worry, I'll teach you everything you need to know. Issei's eyes lit up. Really? Azazel nodded in response, a genuine smile on his face. Thank you, Azazel-sama. Azazel shook his head. I will teach you all the things a regular boy knows. But I won't let you fall. It's depressing, you know. He mentally said. Silence enveloped the place. But it wasn't awkward, it was a comfortable one. Issei leaned his head, smiling. He was glad he was out of that hellhole. He rubbed his throat, remembering the feeling of lava. But then he opened his palm and looked at the silver cross, smiling. I'll endure every pain, just so it was not you receiving them. He thought warmly, remembering the smile of his sweet princess. Azazel noticed this. Isn't that the silver cross God gave Gabriel? Don't tell me. You're in love with her? Issei's eyes widened. What? Where did that come from? He asked, his cheeks red. That cross was the one Gabriel wore. You stared at it like you were content. Pshhh. That was nothing. His wings flashed black, to Issei's annoyance. Azazel chuckled. You're not allowed to lie, Issei. Issei huffed. Damn it. So what? He asked, squirming. Azazel smiled at this, but he was concerned. Love. Issei was red. Azazel-sama? How do we escape this island now? Don't worry. They should be coming by now. A large explosion appeared at the whole place. Azazel and Issei knew that help has some. They stood up but were forced to their knees. The presence Azazel felt earlier just entered the house. Issei was going to make a sound when Azazel covered his mouth. Issei summoned his cutlass but it faded. Sorry, Azazel-sama. But I still have not enough energy. He whispered. Azazel looked at him kindly. Don't worry. I'll take care of this. He summoned a light spear. He slowly sneaked out of the room. He wasn't sure what he was going to do. Most of his energy were depleted by the magic blast. This presence was extremely powerful and his energy was all used up right now. Damn. He thought. He shrugged, jumping down the stairs, ready to stab when multiple magic circles appeared and surrounded him. It was similar to the bizarre-looking magic circle that forced him to his knees a while back. Azazel couldn't quite see the man properly since there was this white light behind him. Only the shadow of the man can be seen. What do you want? Azazel asked. I want but one thing. For the boy to suffer, to be tortured. I want to strangle that bastard, then I'll give him a slow, painful and miserable death. The man said aggressively. Azazel glared challengingly. Hate to break it to you but this boy is under my protection so keep your stupid dream to yourself. Very well, Azazel. He said coldly. He held out his hand and the mini magic circles started to spin around him so fast that it appeared like a wall was formed around him. They started blasting mini beams that went through his body. Azazel screamed in pain but he didn't remove his defying glare. Damn you. He said, blood trickling down his mouth. I have to use you, Fafnir. He said mentally as he took out his dagger. It emitted a golden light. The man was forced to cover his eyes and stop his spell. The golden light faded to reveal Azazel in a golden armor. His 12 wings were out and there were purple jewels on the chest plate. Also, a golden tail was attached to the armor. Azazel took the opportunity of the phased man and sent him flying to the sky, away from sight. Azazel kept punching the man up to the sky. But then, the man caught Azazel's fist and hurled him down to the ground. Azazel's helmet broke as blood spurted out of his mouth in impact. The man landed on top of him. You wanted this. The man screamed at him, taking him by his armor's tail before slamming him down the ground again and again. Bloodstains started adoring the ground. Azazel materialized his two-pronged spear and stabbed the man's guts. Grrrr! He screamed, horrified at the sight of his blood. Azazel still can't see the man since he was covered with the spell of darkness. It makes you appear like a shadow man. Azazel staggered backwards. The man pulled the spear out of his gut, before looking at Azazel dangerously. He was about to hurl the two-pronged spear when a blast of silver energy made him flying and crashing to a house. The whole house collapsed from impact. Azazel looked at his side to see Issei holding his kopesh and had his hand raised. He was panting heavily. "Are you okay, Azazel-sama?" he asked. Azazel didn't answer him and instead pointed at the house that collapsed. A golem started to form. Issei landed down his butt. "Do you have any of those energy blasts of yours?" Azazel asked, hopeful. Issei's grim expression gave him the answer he expected to receive. Azazel took out his bottle of sake. He poured it onto two bowls. He offered Issei one. "Cheers," he said. Issei smiled at him. "Cheers. If we're gonna die, let us die in style then," Azazel said nonchalantly. Issei just shrugged at this and drank his sake. The golem was now fully formed and started marching towards them. Terrifying was an understatement. The earth shook as it took its steps. It was going to scream at them when a white slashes suddenly appeared to its body. The slashes were plenty and they were fast too. The golem froze, before it turned to thin cuts of rock. Ariel was smiling, holding his golden sword. "Well, there you are," he said. "You can play solitary hill piano and violin duet." Issei stood up. Ariel engulfed him in a hug. Azazel closed his eyes, smiling. Issei was gaping and his eyes were wide as Issei was hugged by a crying Ariel. Issei slowly hugged Ariel back, tears forming in his eyes. He heard 5 more persons land behind his back. He pulled out from Ariel's hug by Michael. "My boy," Michael muttered, holding back his tears as he hugged Issei. Issei saw Griselda kneeling, crying in relief. Julio was at the back, waving at him. Raphael walked towards Azazel before smiling. "Thank you," he said sincerely. Azazel smiled and nodded in response. Issei looked around for his princess but she was nowhere to be seen. The angels noticed this and smirked. Raphael stepped aside to reveal his princess. The bad memories, the pain, the torture, he forgot them all in an instant as he looked upon his princess. Her clear blue eyes bore into his. His blushing made her blush. Issei slowly approached her. She smiled softly at him. Raphael punched the smiling Ariel on his shoulders. Griselda and Julio smiled encouragingly at them. Azazel just stayed seated and drank his sake, summoning the sound of piano and violin. Michael, with watery eyes, clapped softly. Issei was in front of Gabriel. He cupped her face. She was blushing and so was he. "Gabriel," he said. Gabriel leaned to him. And to the surprise of everyone, slapped Issei, "Baka."